Michael Moore presents a provocative perspective about the flaws in the American economy. He addresses the issues and his points by using exaggeration and comedy to attack emotions. At the beginning of the documentary, he mentions that capitalism is evil and you cannot regulate evil. I believe that this point is not entirely true.
I also believe this. Evil is a strong word. Progress, especially technology, has been achieved through a capitalistic economy. There are flaws in every system, and it's up for the citizens of a state to ultimately decide how they want to be run. It is the choice of the American majority to be capitalistic, however, have the right to change as long as the majority rules. If I were the American people, I would rather have a mixed economy with the balance of a private and government-regulated economy.
I agree that there should be a mixed economy to balance the power between the individuals and the government in the economy. Capitalism revolves around the principles of classical liberalism, where there's economic freedom involving the ownership of private property and free market, with limited government intervention. The means of productions are privately owned, operating from profits made by investments in competitive market. The problem here is the unfair distribution of wealth and exploitation of the working class. This socialist criticism on classical liberalism is what is being reflected in the movie. When he showed the foreclosure clips, he presented his views that capitalism can be immoral. The banks would force the people out of their homes regardless of the history behind it. But as long as they pay their loans, they get to stay. The banks benefit the most. They get the profit from interest and the profit from reselling the properties. Propaganda behind mortgages mainly targets low-income workers and families because they don't understand how their loan contracts work. It is unfair, but the borrowers should have known that by refinancing their homes, there's also a risk of losing it.
Learning from other people's mistakes, people should know that refinancing is like gambling. However, just as people are partly at fault, the banks and moneylenders are also at fault. The economy is free. Quote, liberty should consist in the freedom to do everything which injures none else. Close quote. Banks take advantage of this ignorance of the people and write in fine print interest that middle-class workers will not be able to pay back. Banks are fully aware of these scams they are doing and are too purely profit-driven that even a basic principle of liberalism is overlooked. However, in a democratic socialist economy, the government can regulate laws that could prevent people from taking such risks. This will allow citizens with at least the bare necessities and to live comfortably. Think about it. Just because it's an all-you-can-eat buffet, should one fill one's plate with all the food, even though he's not going to eat all of it?
Another issue Moore addresses is the bailout of big companies and banks. He believes that it is unnecessary and that the money should have been distributed among the people instead of the failing company. To do so, the people's voice needs to be heard in a democratic system. The bailout of these companies would only increase the government's debt, therefore affecting the taxpayers. Since the economy is based on capitalism that has limited government intervention, why would the government come and save these companies? Wouldn't capitalists agree with Hayek's or Smith's ideology of an invisible hand? Instead, they use Keynes' economic theory to solve the economic crisis. That at times of recession, the government would bail out the banks and companies on verge of bankruptcy in hope that will improve the economy. So the government spends $700 billion on private ownership rather than social welfare programs or public work programs. John Maynard Keynes would have supported the distribution of wealth. He once said, if the poorest segment of the society are given sums of money, they will likely spend it rather than save it, thus promoting economic growth. If the people are given the money, they can pay off debts and spend it. After all, the money comes from the taxpayers, and they need this money to come out of this crisis. In addition, the people are able to see progress or know where the money goes and how it flows.
One thing I deem closer to being evil, however, are the companies that claim insurance on their employees just for a little bit more cash. Corporations should not have the right to earn money from their employees dying. This kind of profit motive of earning money because someone has died is immoral and insensitive as a human. Unlike family members, corporations are not affected too badly because positions can always be replaced. Family members who have died can be replaced and are negatively affected socially and financially. The capitalistic system can work better if there was a limit to human greed. Money needs to go to the right place, to the 99% that need the money. However, through the example of the US and the great disparity that's been created from capitalism, more government presence in the economy is clearly needed. Ultimately, the American people need to be educated that the American dream, achieved through capitalism, can be a misleading hope that will end up biting back. It is in my personal belief that, quote, people can be educated into appreciating the advantages of a collective society, unquote, instead.